So this is going to be a quick 10-minute session. So we're going to talk about what is an API and the things around it. So many of you might have heard about this term API and might have come across and might have used it unknowingly. So let's today try to understand exactly what is an API and where it comes from. So before I start this session, a quick introduction about myself. I'm a performance and a QA architect. I'm working from last 15 plus years. I have created a group called Software Technology Trends, which is available in LinkedIn. We have about 550 members as of today. So you're free to join in. There we usually share and collaborate and exchange ideas, the technical software related ideas, and also some webinars are conducted through that. So that being said, today's agenda is going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about what is an API in simple terms, and then we're going to get into some technical definitions of an API, and then we'll be talking about the types of APIs we have, and followed with the architecture of it. And at the end, I'm going to share some free APIs which you can access and use it, which is available in public. So what is an API in simple terms? So let's just understand the basics of an API. So everyone would have gone to a restaurant, everyone would have made an order. So whenever you're making an order, normally you're going to watch and check the menu, and you will be ordering something from the menu, and that's it. And beyond that, whatever happens, one, you don't want to know, second, you don't care. So similarly, the request is then taken back to the kitchen staff based on the requirement, based on what you want to have. They have to serve, make a dish and serve it back to you. And again, the waiter is going to get the food from the chef and serve it back to you. So this is a very simplistic way of explaining what is an API. If you understand this, probably will understand exactly how it works. So as an end user, as a user from your side, you just make a request. So behind the scene, whatever happens in an application or in any given software, you don't really care. So API is the one which sort of communicates from you, your request, to the backend, to the servers, and serve you back whatever you requested for at the end. So this is a very simplistic way of looking into an API. If I have to give you one more example, so have you ever wondered whenever you are ordering the food, you from your app, you can see where your driver is exactly, or whenever you're ordering, whenever you're booking for a ride in a taxi, you would know exactly where his location is. So do you think all these companies will have a lot of satellites around in the world to track their location and give it to you? Answer is no. So usually how it works is based on their location. It's already been tracked and it's already been looked upon from Google. So what they can do is they can expose these APIs to others. So any of these delivery apps, they can use these APIs and try to encache whatever they've already created and try to showcase their location back to you in their application. So they really do not have to go through the hassle of doing all this work. So they have to just make a call to Google with a proper authentication and say, hey, I would like to know the location of this person. And Google will respond back with that information and they just have to display it. So that's how APIs can be much more useful when you think beyond any regular communication. It has a mechanism of giving you access to the data with proper authorization. So let's look into a little deeper technical definitions of it. So API by itself stands for Application Programming Interface. A little more explanation about that is whenever a software has to talk to each other, and that's an API is something it's been used. If you have used your phone, if you have used WhatsApp, Facebook, any banking application, any app or any desktop related software, then for sure you would have been a part of this API journey. So any request you make from front end is usually being carried out from an API from the back end. So now that we have seen what API is, so let's talk a little bit about what types of APIs are there. So Mainly APIs are broadly classified into four different types. The first one being the public APIs. So in the public APIs are the ones which is open and available for everyone. Like I was giving an example of Google. Similarly, weather or news is meant to be shown to everyone. So they will usually do not have a lot of authorization or authentication to it. They want other services application to access their data and use it. So you can for sure make a call to a weather-based API call and get a response back and use the same information to display it in your application or use it the way you would like to without actually investing or without actually going into understanding or building an infrastructure about gathering weather related information. So public APIs are generally very widely used, free for everyone to access it. You may have to still go through a moderate level of authentication and authorization, but that's very fairly set up and you can use it as you go. The second one is the partner APIs. These are all the one which is only available to the selected partners. So they do not want all the public to access these APIs. If I have to give an example, whenever you make a hotel booking or whenever you make an online payment, you really do not want this to be accessed by anyone else. It has to be secure and it has to be a communication between the two parties itself. So that is when the partner APIs comes into picture. So as you can see, as we are moving into much more secured way of communicating, then definitely the authentication authorization has to be very sophisticated. So the security mechanism is very highly handled in this type of API interaction. The next one is going to be a private or an internal APIs. Whenever there is a company or an application which is much larger, they really have to deal with multiple communication and multiple APIs. So one application or one subset of it serves as an input for another side. So let's take a banking example. Whenever you have to make any payment, it has to first validate you as a user and maybe access your bank account information and then process a payment. So there's multiple steps involved. So it may have to talk to different sides of the application. So these APIs can request information from each other within the system. It will be all internal and private. So this is a sort of API category which also we have currently. And since it is all internal, there is a limited authentication, but again, it definitely has a lot more security when it comes to firewall and anything beyond. So imagine whenever you are having a payroll or a HR query system you are trying to access or talk to them. So these are all something which is private and internal. So this will be a good example for that. And the last type is going to be a composite API. So these are combining multiple APIs into one. Sometimes one API, you cannot overload it with a lot of requests and burden it with a lot of data in the aspect of making them work much more effectively. You may have to split the APIs or tie the APIs in such a way that it is talking to the other systems much more easily. So in that case, they want to combine different APIs. Once you make a call, it may have to further make a subsequent calls and get a data back, and it will be shown back to the user. So these type of multiple communication or tie-up is called composite APIs. So these are all the four types of APIs you should generally be aware of. So now let's talk a little bit on the protocol and the architecture. So now we are getting a little bit more closer to the way we have to build it. So even though there are multiple architecture or a way to access API and work with it, the highly used or very widely used types are RPC, SOAP, and REST. RPC stands for Remote Procedure Call. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol, and REST stands for Representational State Transfer. So what's the difference between these are? To start with, it's from the format. SOAP is much more single tone. It has only the XML. If you have to make a request and get a response, it has to be XML only. When it comes to RPC, it can be a multiple format, can be JSON, XML, flat buffers. When it comes to REST, it has much more flexibility than RPC itself. It can be XML, it can be JSON, HTML, even plain text can be used through REST. So if you ask me, out of all three, REST is something which is very widely used, and JSON format and plain text format is, and also XML format is something being very used in any of the companies. So if you have to talk about the learning curves with this, RPC and REST comes in as a easier one to understand and implement. So it's a little more difficult because it has a much more detailed structure. It has a body header. You have to really follow the structure in order for the SOAP request to work and XML to work. Community support, since most of them have a wide variety of users, REST and RPC has a bigger community because of its usage. So SOAP comparatively has a smaller community. So let's quickly talk about the use cases, or where can you actually implement these different types. Whenever you have any microservices system, you have multiple subsets of requests to be processed. Remote procedure call could be a best suitable one. Whenever you have any payment gateways, you want more security, you want more structure, information to be sent out, then SOAP can be a very good option for you. And at last, if you have any public APIs, you want to send it and make it available for everyone, probably REST will be the best option to go for. So that's being said, as a last slide, I just wanted to bring about a couple of public APIs which you can possibly use to play around with. If you go today and access them, you pretty much will be able to. A couple of them can be a coin desk, where you can view the Bitcoin index price in real time, and that's the sample URL I have. You can access this and you will be able to get a response back. Same goes for the nationalized IO, where you can just predict the nationality of a person based on their name. It is a fun API to play around with. You can also build your application, or you can build a website and have this integrated. So that way, whenever someone is putting in their information, it in turn makes a call to nationalize.io, get the information back and display it in your website. So that's how you can utilize the APIs. And at last, you have a data USA, where you can get some information related to population and data in the US. So that's all I wanted to show. So please do join our software technology trends group in LinkedIn.